There's a software engineer in Austin making $340,000 a year. His wife works in pharmaceutical sales and brings in another $145,000. Combined, their household pulls in just under $500,000 annually. They lease 2 vehicles, an Audi for him and a large SUV for her. Their 2 kids attend a private school where tuition runs $26,000 per child each year. Their mortgage on a 4-bedroom home in a good neighborhood costs $6,400 a month. They eat out most evenings because neither of them has the time or energy to cook after back-to-back 10-hour workdays. They belong to a private athletic club that charges $310 a month. They take 2 vacations a year, once over spring break and once during the summer, and when they vacation, they do not cut corners. On paper, they are exactly what financial success is supposed to look like. Last March, their HVAC system failed. The replacement quote came in at $8,200. They put it on a credit card because after the bills cleared that month, the checking account held less than $2,500. A household earning nearly $500,000 a year could not absorb a single home repair without going into debt. This is not a rare story. It is not an isolated case of 2 otherwise smart people making a string of poor decisions. It is a pattern so common among high earners that researchers have begun to study it specifically, and the numbers they have produced are genuinely difficult to sit with. According to research published by multiple major financial institutions in 2025, approximately 40% of Americans earning between $300,000 and $500,000 describe themselves as living paycheck to paycheck. Among households earning above $500,000, the percentage is nearly the same. These are not people navigating sudden job loss or catastrophic medical debt. They are not new to their careers. Many of them are at the peak of their earning power, bringing in more in a single month than a lot of American families earn across an entire year. And they carry the same financial anxiety, the same quiet dread before a large unexpected expense, as someone making a fraction of their salary. One study found that nearly half of all earners at or above $100,000 describe themselves as financially stretched on a monthly basis. A separate analysis defined living paycheck to paycheck as spending more than 95% of income. Under that definition, roughly 1 in 5 households earning above $150,000 qualifies. Nearly a quarter of all American households met the same threshold in 2025. These are not people who never learned how money works. They understand compound interest. They know what index funds are. They sat through benefits enrollment presentations and actively chose their contribution percentages. The problem is not financial education. The trap they are caught in operates on psychology, and psychology does not respond to spreadsheets the way arithmetic does. Most people carry a belief that somewhere out there is a number. Some income level where the financial stress finally stops and the anxiety just goes quiet. Hit 6 figures and start breathing easier. Clear $200,000 and stop lying awake thinking about the bills. Cross $400,000 and feel like money is finally under control. This belief is not just wrong. It is one of the most expensive assumptions a person can hold, because it keeps them waiting for a salary to solve a problem that a salary alone was never designed to solve. What actually happens when income rises is a process researchers call lifestyle inflation. It operates so gradually, so quietly, that most people who are fully inside it have no awareness it is happening at all. When income goes up, spending goes up in direct proportion. Sometimes beyond it. The $14 lunch that was perfectly satisfying becomes a $32 lunch because the neighborhood changed, the options improved, and the upgrade felt reasonable at the time. The reliable 4-year-old Honda gets traded for a leased Audi because the new salary supports it and, honestly, the parking lot at the new firm quietly expects it. The 2-bedroom apartment becomes a 4-bedroom house with a finished basement and a guest room that gets used maybe twice a year. The standard gym becomes a private athletic club with a monthly fee that would have felt absurd at a previous income level. Each individual decision makes complete sense in the moment. You earned it. You can cover it. The math clears. But what nobody accounts for while it is happening is that every upgrade permanently rewrites the baseline. The expensive lunch is no longer a treat. It is just Tuesday. The leased Audi is no longer a reward for a promotion. It is just the car. And once those things become the new normal, walking them back does not feel like a reasonable financial adjustment. It feels like going backward. It feels like something has gone wrong. This is the core mechanism of the trap. It is not about any one purchase being reckless. It is about how every purchase permanently resets what feels acceptable, until the entire lifestyle becomes nearly impossible to reverse without confronting a level of emotional cost most people are not prepared to pay. Pulling the kids out of private school is not just a budget decision. It becomes a statement about what kind of parent you are. Selling the vacation property is not just reducing a fixed expense. It becomes a public admission that things did not go the way you projected. The trap tightens because the spending is no longer just spending. It has become identity. And identity is the hardest thing to cut from a budget. The most revealing contrast in personal finance research is not between rich and poor. It is between how high earners live and how genuinely wealthy people actually live. These two groups look almost nothing alike. A landmark study on American millionaires found that the vast majority of them bear no resemblance to the way most people imagine them. They live in ordinary neighborhoods. They drive vehicles that are several years old. They almost never make visible displays of their net worth, and when asked about it directly, many seem almost uncomfortable discussing it. Follow-up research found that over 60% of millionaires still budget consistently, still compare prices before spending, and deliberately avoid extravagant lifestyle choices even after crossing the $1 million threshold. A large portion of them have never spent more than a few $100s on a single item of clothing. A significant share live in homes worth under $500,000. Compare that picture to the software engineer in Austin. His household income puts him in the top 2% of the country. His home has 4 bedrooms and a 3-car garage. His driveway holds 2 leased European vehicles. And his checking account last March held less than $2,500. The electrician in a neighboring town drives a 10-year-old pickup truck, lives in a 3-bedroom house he finished paying off 11 years ago, and has quietly accumulated $1.7 million in index funds over 24 years by saving 20% of a modest income every single year without exception. He looks, on the surface, like someone who has less. In every meaningful financial sense, he has far more. Financial researchers developed a benchmark for understanding exactly how wide this gap becomes over time. Take your age, multiply it by your pre-tax annual household income, and divide by 10. The result is a rough estimate of where your net worth should be at this point in your life. A 46-year-old earning $290,000 should have approximately $1.3 million. A 52-year-old earning $380,000 should have a net worth somewhere around $2 million. Most high earners who run this calculation for the first time experience a quiet but significant moment of discomfort. Some choose not to run it a second time. The research places people into one of 2 categories based on this measurement. Those whose actual net worth significantly exceeds the benchmark are strong wealth accumulators. Those whose net worth falls substantially below it are underaccumulators. The variable that determines which category you fall into is not your income level. It is your spending behavior relative to your income, sustained over time. A person earning $65,000 a year can out-accumulate a person earning $600,000 if their savings discipline is strong enough. The income is the input. The behavior determines the output. A national wealth survey in 2025 found that Americans believe you need roughly $2.3 million to be considered genuinely wealthy, and about $840,000 just to feel financially comfortable. The median net worth of American households in the same period sat at approximately $193,000. The gap between what people believe they need and what they have actually built is not a small miscalculation. It is a generational scale shortfall, and it holds across every income bracket. Here is where the psychology becomes particularly punishing for high earners. When you are bringing in $430,000 a year but your actual net worth sits at $260,000, you do not feel wealthy. You feel behind. And the instinct, almost universally, is to solve that feeling by earning more. Get the promotion. Take the higher paying offer. Land the bonus. The actual solution, spending less and investing the difference, requires confronting spending patterns that have long since calcified into personal identity, which is a much harder problem than finding a new job. Researchers call the mechanism that drives this the hedonic treadmill. Every new income milestone arrives loaded with new spending to match. The standard of what constitutes a comfortable life keeps climbing. The sense of financial security stays permanently just ahead of wherever you actually are. In a 2025 wealth survey, nearly two-thirds of respondents said it takes more money to feel financially secure today than it did just 1 year prior. The goalpost keeps moving. Someone reaches $500,000 in net worth and discovers that comfortable now requires $840,000. They push to $1 million and find that wealthy now apparently means $2.3 million. There is no moment of arrival because the destination is never fixed. It keeps relocating just far enough ahead to stay out of reach. The credit data reflects all of this in concrete numbers. In 2025, households earning above $100,000 carried an average credit card balance of nearly $13,000. The top fifth of earners by income held more than a third of all U.S. credit card debt, despite making up a far smaller share of the population. Total U.S. credit card debt crossed $1.27 trillion by late 2025, the highest level ever recorded, up more than 65% from the lows of early 2021. The way credit functions differs across income levels, but the end result converges. Lower-income households use credit because cash runs out before the month does. They are financing survival. Higher-income households use credit differently. They use it to maintain continuity. To bridge the gap between when the lifestyle costs land and when the paycheck arrives. To absorb an unexpected expense without having to make any visible adjustment to a life that, from the outside, looks like everything is going exactly as planned. More than a third of credit card holders earning $100,000 or more carry a balance from 1 month into the next. That figure is lower than lower income groups, but at this income level it should be approaching zero. It is not. And the duration of that debt is extending. The majority of Americans carrying credit card balances have been carrying them for at least a year, with that trend continuing to worsen. The fixed cost structure is where the trap becomes nearly impossible to exit at higher income levels. When a household earns $70,000, a lender constrains how much mortgage they can take on. When a household earns $380,000, they qualify for a mortgage that stretches their budget just as thin, but the dollar amounts are 4 or 5 times larger. A family earning $90,000 might spend $2,300 a month on housing. A family earning $380,000 might spend $9,000. Both are committing a similar share of their income to shelter. Both face the same fundamental lack of financial flexibility. The high-income family simply has a more expensive version of the same constraint. Layer on top of that the secondary fixed costs that accumulate steadily at higher income levels. Private school tuition at $52,000 a year for 2 children. A vacation property with insurance, maintenance, and carrying costs. Club memberships. Multiple vehicle leases. Premium subscriptions stacking up over years of earning more and spending accordingly. None of these are individually reckless decisions. Together, they are capable of consuming an entire income before the question of savings ever enters the picture. Research on how 6-figure earners respond to financial pressure confirms that most of them are aware something is off. Nearly half delay significant travel plans when they feel squeezed. About a third postpone home improvement projects. More than a quarter push back on vehicle upgrades. Nearly 1 in 5 delays a home purchase. They recognize the constraint. But recognition rarely produces the behavioral change that would actually resolve it. The national savings rate puts the outcome of all of this into a single number. In late 2025, Americans were saving less than 4 cents of every dollar of disposable income they earned. The personal savings rate sat at roughly 3.6%. For context, during the early months of the pandemic in 2020, the rate briefly spiked above 33%. Spending opportunities vanished, income support arrived, and Americans accidentally discovered what consistent, substantial saving actually feels like. That period ended, spending resumed, and the default pattern returned almost immediately. The cruelty of this pattern is that it holds across income levels. A higher earner saves slightly more in raw dollar terms, but their savings rate is often just as low because spending has grown at exactly the same pace as income. Someone earning $85,000 who saves 4% puts away $3,400 a year. Someone earning $340,000 who saves 4% puts away $13,600. The second person is setting aside 4 times as many dollars. But relative to their income, their fixed costs, and the lifestyle they are now obligated to sustain, they are equally exposed to any disruption. And the disruption, when it comes, costs them 4 times as much to survive. Actual wealth accumulators operate differently. The research on millionaires consistently shows that they treat savings as a fixed obligation, not a residual afterthought. The typical millionaire invests a minimum of 15% of income before any other spending decision is made. Not what is left over. First. Automated. Non-negotiable. Life is funded with what remains after that transfer is made. The gap between 4% and 15%, compounded over decades, produces a difference in outcome that most people are genuinely not prepared to calculate. Social comparison is what accelerates this entire cycle and makes it so difficult to interrupt. Lifestyle inflation has always existed. What has changed is the speed at which comparisons happen and the sheer number of them. Social media delivers a continuous, curated highlight reel of everyone around you, including people who may be far more financially precarious than they appear. A 2025 institutional report directly identified peer spending pressure as a measurable driver of paycheck-to-paycheck behavior among high earners. Six-figure professionals feel a pull to match the visible choices of colleagues and contacts, even when their own financial reality makes that matching destructive. The colleague who just renovated their kitchen might be carrying it on a home equity line. The contact posting photos from a resort in the Maldives might have charged the entire trip to a credit card they have no plan to pay off before the interest compounds. The neighbor with the new vehicle might be 72 months into a payment that technically fits their income but leaves nothing for anything else. Competing against a performance using real money is one of the fastest ways available to erode financial stability, and most people doing it have no accurate picture of how unstable the people they are competing with actually are. Here is what all of this costs when expressed as a single number. Take two people. Both earn $310,000 a year. Both work in the same city. Both have similar career timelines of 25 years ahead of them. The first person saves 22% of their income each year and invests it consistently. That is roughly $68,000 annually. At an average annual return of 7% over 25 years, those contributions compound to approximately $4.8 million. The second person saves 4%. That is $12,400 a year. Same return. Same timeline. The result is approximately $875,000. The income is identical. The career length is identical. The only variable is the percentage of income deliberately preserved. The gap in outcome is $3.9 million. The second person did not make obviously destructive choices. They took good vacations. They drove vehicles they were proud of. They sent their kids to schools they felt good about. They ate well and lived in a home they were comfortable bringing guests to. They never felt, on any given Tuesday, like anything was wrong. And 25 years later, the first person has the option to stop working. The second person is running calculations on whether they can afford to. That $3.9 million difference is the price of the trap. Not the result of a crisis. Not the consequence of a catastrophe. The accumulated cost of a normal, comfortable, well-funded life, lived on an income that should have built something far larger. The exit from this cycle is accessible to anyone currently inside it. But it requires something most high earners have successfully avoided, an honest conversation with their own spending about what it is actually producing. The automation principle is the only starting point that works. Deciding to save whatever is left at the end of the month has never worked at any income level, because lifestyle reliably expands to absorb every available dollar. The only approach with a track record of actually working is to redirect a fixed percentage of every paycheck to investments before that money ever arrives in a spending account. Automate the transfer. Raise the percentage each time income increases. Treat it as an obligation that carries the same priority as the mortgage. Once that is in place, every recurring expense deserves a single question answered honestly. Is this generating value proportional to what it costs, or is it there primarily to maintain an image, match a standard set by someone else, or avoid the discomfort of downgrading something that was never essential in the first place? Most people who run this audit with real honesty find subscriptions they stopped using months ago, memberships that provide social status more than actual utility, and premium versions of things where the standard version would be entirely sufficient. The third shift is about reorienting the comparison entirely. The most financially destructive habit most high earners carry is not a spending category. It is the habit of measuring themselves against visible wealth rather than actual wealth. The colleague with the newer car might be carrying $80,000 in auto financing. The neighbor with the fresh renovation might be $120,000 deeper in home equity debt. The curated feed of lifestyle highlights is not a financial statement. It is a performance, assembled specifically to project an image of success. Competing against that performance with real money is how the trap stays closed. The software engineer in Austin earns enough. He earns more than enough. He does not need a higher salary to build the financial security he does not currently have. He needs to decide, clearly and deliberately, what percentage of what he already earns is going to stay. 4 out of 10 people earning $400,000 or more live without a meaningful financial cushion. Not because the income is insufficient. Because income without intention is just a faster conveyor belt delivering you to the same place everyone else ends up. The trap is built on one assumption that turns out to be wrong. The assumption is that income is the answer. Every person who has ever received a raise and still felt financially behind already has all the evidence they need to question that assumption. Income is the raw material. What you actually build with it is a choice. Earners across the country, that choice is being made by default, by habit, by comparison, and by the slow accumulation of a lifestyle that looks exactly like success and operates exactly like a cage. The number on the paycheck was never going to be the answer. The behavior behind the number always was.